I got to look at it and I got to see how we're going to improve and what actions we're going to take to be able to improve on those quality targets and perspectives. Creating a culture of improvement. Foster psychological safety. When I talk about psychological safety, that means that if you give me ideas and then I say, oh, that's not a very good idea, or we're not going to use that, how are you going to come back again with that feedback to me? You're going to be very hesitant to do that. You're not going to do that. So again, I have to be open to be able to take that and creating a culture of improvement, that when I get those ideas, we're going to use those, we're going to look at them, we're going to try to improve. So I got to make sure that I'm accepting and open to those ideas. Recognize and reward contributions. I know we do this a lot on the safety side and on the quality side, but again, we got to look at it to incentivize individuals in the organization. If you've got a good continuous improvement, I want you to give me that information. And then based off of that, if we make that improvement, then I'm going to reward you that and recognize that individual for that contribution. Promote cross-functional collaboration. Again, using everybody. We talked a little bit about this in our 7 habits. What do we call that? We call that synergy, right? So synergy means that we're bringing everybody together to be able to work together as a team to improve. Tools leaders use in continuous improvement. We've already talked about Lean. We've already talked about Gemba. We talked about Kaizen. One of the things that I'll probably present to you is what we call agile methodology. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But all of these are good tools for us to use to be able to do continuous improvement. Data-driven decision making. I know there's a lot of data that we collect in as an organization. Are we using that data to help us to understand where we're at and where we want to go? And based off of that data, we're using it to understand how do we continuously improve. And then the thing about it is measuring and monitoring. Are we improving because of those continuous improvements? And then regular retrospectives and feedback loops. Once again, it's that communication within the team to understand where we're going. Challenges leaders face. We all face resistance, right? Right? So sometimes most people are not receptive to change. Most people are not. And so a lot of times we're going to get that resistance. But again, we have to get individuals to understand the why. Why are we doing these things? What are the improvements? And how is it important to me and also to the organization? Short-term focus versus long-term gains. A lot of times we get stuck into what they call I can't see the forest for the trees. So it's an idea about, is the return on investment enough to be able to say, okay, I'm going to spend this capital or this time to be able to accomplish this continuous improvement idea. So again, a lot of times we look short-term versus what is the long-term gain if we put these continuous improvement ideas in place. And then maintaining momentum. That's one of the hardest things, is that we get sometimes to a point where we do some continuous improvements, but we're not continuing to have the vision to go forward. Used to have a guy that I worked with call these type of activities are like pushing a train. Once you get the train started, you can't stop, right? Because if you stop, then you got to start pushing back over again. So we always want to continue to have a culture and a mindset that once we get that train pushed, we got to keep going. How to get started. We assess our current culture and processes, set small, achievable goals. Don't start out too big, because what happens if you start out too big, then sometimes we fail, and then we don't want to go back and start back over again. So if you set those small goals, which we call small wins, we do those, then the team sees the activities and they recognize that we're making those small wins, and then that's where you get your momentum. Engage and empower your team. Once again, it's all about collaboration. Can't do it by ourselves. So conclusion, we have a strategic alignment, team empowerment, having a growth mindset, create a culture of learning, make data-driven decisions, and collaboration is a non-negotiable, and then sustaining momentum. So hopefully you can have a takeaway a little bit from, as leaders, I need you to be the individuals that are focused on continuing improvement and then making sure that we're working as a team to work on those. So we'll talk a little bit more over the next couple of weeks about how do we work on continuous improvement. Thought of the day: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. All right? Trying to think. Oh, tomorrow. All right, tomorrow we have our customer HMMA. It's going to be here. They'll be here about 8 o'clock in the morning. So just be aware. So today what I ask you for is, what is our number one priority? Safety. All right, so again, we're building the culture of safety within the organization. So who's responsible for safety? I am. I am responsible for my safety. But again, who do I influence? I influence others, right? So please be a good example, influence others towards safety. If you can, work on our 5S and whatever we can do so that tomorrow our customer will walk away definitely impressed about what we've been working over the last 6 months. Mr. Alex?